right, see you later.
I should have just started it with talking about that.
Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. Good to see you.
Good morning.
As usual, we're cutting that before the show starts.
Whew.
One of these days, we're just going to have to start filming as soon as people come on because it gets kind of crazy.
I
reckon we just all jump on just like literally 30 seconds before we start the show and then go, right, everyone here, go, and then just start chatting.
Yeah.
But
before I get started without letting everybody know we're starting.
Hey, you should do that sometime, Claude. See if anybody knows.
Well, I have actually. I've done it, for like 30 seconds. I haven't done it any longer than that. But anyway, good morning, everybody. Good to see you here. And I think Bill's out on the road this week, so he's not here. But Shannon's here from down under. And I don't know what we're going to talk about today, but we'll find something, I'm sure.
Shannon's got something new.
Anyway, Steve, tell us who's in the chat.
Well, good morning, everybody. Well, I can't believe nobody knew what a stable is. I thought everybody knew. But anyway, good morning. We got Ray Ron. We got Hi, H.H. Almar, Lynn McCurdy, Closet Ranch, my buddy Bernard, Rob T-Man. Container Man, how you doing, Roy Hardwick? We got Sparky.
No, not Roy. Not Roy.
We got
Roy. Block Roy.
Gerald Stewart. Oh, man, we got Gail's in here. Good morning, Gail. We got here Palia. Good morning. How are you? And
You got Sparky.
We got Steve Way. Morning.
Yeah, don't forget Wigwag. He was here first.
We got Thomas. You changed your name again. I think you used to be Thomas the Post-War. Morning. Let's see who else we got. I think that's it. Did I miss anybody? Anyway,
I don't know. There'll be some come into here in a little bit.
I always do.
Anyway, Steve wants to know how's the water tower work. Well,
Anderson. Hey, Steve.
You pump water up into the top of it, and then it flows out the spout when you need it. No, this is since we're talking about that all of a sudden, this is the latest structure build for the layout. This is a northern water tank. I did put the name of the town, Timberline, which would be the town on the upper deck of mine. This isn't quite finished yet. You can see spouts a little limp. But
I was going to say, are you still going to add the steps on the side? Because I can see the.
Oh yeah, the ladder's not on it. The ladder's not on it. The top's not, is not attached yet. But this is a Campbell's kit. This is the original water tower I built. Now this is one that's not for northern climate. You can see it's not enclosed on the bottom. But I'll have 3 of this style on the layout, and then this northern style here on the layout. This one, like I say, it's not finished. I'm still working on the detail stuff on it, but I did something on this one that I like better. I used a rust colored heavy thread for the bands. You can see that. Get up very close. Here, let me do this. Where am I here? There we go.
Sparky wants to know if you attach the top water in it.
Say again?
Sparky wants to know if you attach the top, how are you going to get water into it?
From underneath. Pump it up from underneath.
There's a pipe.
Yeah, there's a pipe underneath. Anyway, this is, like I say, this is the northern time. But the difference I did on this was the bands. I used a rust-colored thread, heavy thread, and I think it looks a lot better than the monofilament that they give you in the kit, which is what this one is. So you can't hardly see it on there. It just doesn't show up because it's clear. And I would change it, except I'd have to pull all of this off the front to be able to change that to the other thread. So this one will get put in a place that's not going to be seen as much.
Hey, Claude.
Yeah.
So the thread, are there stick pins underneath the water meter that you
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, underneath the let me get turned here, we can see
The gauge.
The water level gauge. Yeah, this is the water level gauge. Oh, there, it's on this side. There. And underneath this, they give you, I don't know, 1/2 inch long straight pins to poke through. And that's what you start from the top and you glue it at the top. You see, like right here, you can see where I glued it up here on top. And then you come down and you wrap it around that first pin and you go around. And you go down to the next pin, you wrap it around and you go around and do that all the way down. It's a little
That's
bit tedious, but not
skill
too bad.
Is that something that's prototypical for the water towers, or is it just
What, as far as what?
like with the bands being made out of string in this case, were the prototypes like used rope, or is it just
No,
meant
they'd
to
be
represent
metal.
like steel
Wouldn't
bands?
they be metal?
Usually either rod or flat metal.
Yeah. They did
Okay.
use like I want to say like a 5/8 inch, maybe, might be bigger than that, rod. And it's threaded where they have the turnbuckles. See all the turnbuckles on there, and they would have those on both sides. I have to put them on the other side yet. I haven't put those on yet, but that's how they would tighten those up.
Yeah.
Now, originally, I don't know if Denver and Rio Grande did this, but originally the water towers were done at tapered. And what they would do is they'd weld the stays up ahead of time and slide them down until they got tight. And then they could fill it with water and it would stay tight. But these, then they went to this style and changed. And you can see, of course, at the bottom, there's more at the bottom because that's where you can have more pressure against the side of the tank than you do at the top.
more fluid weight. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why they did that. But the turnbuckles are on there to keep it tight. They can tighten them up and keep them that way. But yeah, they used rod mainly. And then I think they also used some bands. But the problem with the bands, I would think, is that they're being flat, they're thinner.
Yeah, the rods
faster. Yeah.
The rods would probably be easier to tension and.
Yeah, exactly. I think so too. And of course, then they could thread them on the end, so that make it, because if you use a flat band, you either have to weld those turnbuckles on, each half of the turnbuckle on there, or you have to put something on there that they can screw to. But anyway, that's what I've been doing this last week, is working on that.
Yeah.
But you can see this one has the ladder on it. I don't have the ladder on this other one yet, but I will.
I think I kind of like that open bottom.
The open bottom's nice. It's got a lot of detail to it.
More to look at.
Yeah, there is. And it's a little more interesting.
Have you ever been in the, like, what's in the other water tower that you have, the original?
It would look just like this basically, but instead of having just the legs like this, it's got the.
Is there anything inside there? Like, is there like an office in there or something?
Yeah, there would be a
lift
pump in here to pump the water up, and your pipe coming up out of the ground.
Okay, so it's not like a little.
And it's close because it would have been in a northern climate where it would be cold.
Yeah, I got
longer than it is just in the mountains.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, lift pump and lift pipe will be in there probably.
Yeah, and that's what's in this. In this part is the pipe going up, and the pump may or may not be in here. It may be outside of this.
Hey, Claude, Bernard wants to know where 3 gals from Petticoat Junction are.
Yeah, where are they at?
Well, you'd have to leave the top of it off.
You have to leave the top off.
You have to leave the top off. Put the girls up here on top.
Maybe Bernard could print you some. Bernard from Mini Print.
Well, I thought about doing that on the brewery. The brewery's got an open top tank. And I thought about that, but I'm thinking, I don't think they'd be up on top of the brewery roof in the tank swimming because it's not that big a tank. But this is what you would have seen on Petticoat Junction would have been something similar to this. Or a square one like Bill's got on his layout. But for, steam trains, they had a lot of these. And in fact, the Cumberson Toll Tech has 4 or 5 on the trip from Chama to Antonito. Now they don't stop at all of them anymore because the K36s have a much bigger capacity tender than the smaller locos. But they had to put them in ever so often, depending on how much steam they were having to use to get up an incline. And they're a lot closer together than you would think.
I
But
can
most
imagine,
of theirs are
especially
still
during the winter.
usable. Say again?
I can imagine during the winter that would have been a problem considering, slippage and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, they ice up, that's for sure. You can see pictures. You can find pictures of them iced up and stuff. On the Denver and Rio Grande, on the Durango and Silverton run, once you get up past the High Line and you're down along the valley with the river, which are actually above the High Line by that point, but the river's up there too. They use an old tank car shell, and that's what they're holding storage is for their water, but their water's coming from the spring above that. I don't know if it's a spring or if it's just runoff from the mountains higher up, but they do stop and use that one on the trip up from Durango to Silverton.
They don't run in the winter time. They don't run in the winter, do they?
The Durango and Silverton, they run halfway in the wintertime.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they go up to Cascade Creek, I think is what it's called, something like that. But they go about halfway up, and there's a Y there, and they can turn the train and go back.
That must be something in the snow.
Oh yeah, well you can see videos of it on YouTube. It's pretty cool. Anytime you got a steam train running in the cold weather, you get 3 times the amount of steam smoke that you would get on a normal run in the summertime. But it's some beautiful country to see in the snow too. Fall time is really pretty. Summer's pretty. It's just beautiful country up there. But it's the water tanks are still in use, and now they don't use them like at the. There's not a tank down in Durango any longer. Chama does have one. I don't know if they use the one in Chama, but the tank is still there. But I think they're using a little more modern method now, just piping it right out of the ground up to a standpipe and watering that way, if I remember right.
Yeah, I know here in Victoria with our locos, they've welded basically the connection fitting for fire hoses. So they just go to a fire hydrant, connect the hose on one end, connect the tender, open the fire hose, and just let it pump water.
Yeah. Well, when you're talking about, like the K36s, I think hold 5,500 gallons, something like that. It takes a while to fill that with a fire hose. So that's why they've got these tanks, or have these tanks, is because they can dump the water pretty quick.
Yeah.
And dump a large amount of water in short order. But anyway, that's what I've been working on this week. So when we can move on. Anybody got any questions?
Back in the day, was freezing.
I'm sorry, say again?
Years ago when they were running this, I should probably know this, but I don't. How did they keep the water supplies from freezing up so they couldn't water the locomotives? Sometimes it gets below freezing.
Let me make this big again. Yeah, it does get below freezing.
Well below freezing.
Okay. Get this one out of the way. I'll use this one because it's finished. Well, when they raise this up, you see there's a pipe at the bottom.
Right
here. And all this does is come down and get in front of it. All this is a funnel. All this part is. So what they would do is they drop that down, and I don't know if you can see it on here. I really can't see it on here, but there's another chain, a third chain besides the one that holds the weight of the spout. And that third chain is what they would pull, and it opens the valve to let the water flow. Now, the water inside is not going to freeze because it's, for one thing, there's so much of it. I don't know that it would ever get cold enough to freeze that.
Kind of
like a pond, I reckon.
It
like
would freeze on the top.
Yeah, kind of like a swimming pool.
You're not gonna,
Yeah, it freeze up on the top. You'll see pictures of these. Any place that had a leak, you'd have icicles, coming down. You might have some icicles off the bottom of this a little bit. but it's not going to freeze up to the point where it's going to clog, because when they raise this back up, it's going to drain out. So there's not water standing in this.
What keeps the valve from freezing up?
The valve is from what I understand, is right in the middle of the tank. Okay, so it would be straight above this. Okay, and so it would come out of the bottom, and then it turns just underneath the tank and comes to the spout. But that valve is actually up in the tank, I believe, or just below it, but it's in that enclosed area, so it doesn't freeze. But that's the whole reason they have this.
I would suspect it would be in the tank, in the water.
Probably
isn't going to freeze because of the volume, because all of your ice is at the top.
Yeah, that would be my guess too. That it's actually in the water, so it's keeping it away from the cold air. But that's how they would get it out of there. Is they pull that third chain, and that opens that valve up, and then it's just free flow from there.
And then your
container man just said there's videos of steam men beating the chute to get the ice out to get the water to flow.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's probably times when they've had that problem, and it depends on the water tank. But this particular style, they shouldn't have any icing problem inside the spout.
And I'll wager a guess that inside, the enclosure, that your actual pump that is pushing the water to the top is probably below the frost line in the ground.
Yeah, would be my guess. In a pit, down in a pit, like you would do a regular well pump.
Anybody's drill water anywhere, generally, if you're pumping water from a well, you're going to have a pit, and the reason you have a pit is because it's below the frost line.
Yeah,
I used to drill water wells.
Yeah. Well, and that'd be the same thing here. Now, some of the ones, there's one on the Cumberson Toltec, their original tank was fed, and it may still be fed from a spring, a small lake that's above the pass that's spring fed. And so then they just tapped into that, and gravity flows down to the tank. They don't even use a pump. Or at least I don't think they use a pump. Maybe they do now, but they didn't back when the tank was built. I think that's one place they put in one of the standpipes just straight up out of the ground. It's just a regular standpipe as opposed to having a tank. Because, it gets cold up there and freezes. I mean, a standpipe would be a little easier to deal with, I would think.
Yeah. Oh, Bill just popped in chat.
Hey, Bill.
Hey, Bill.
Hey, Bill. Where are you at, Bill?
Yeah, I thought he said he was traveling.
Yeah.
Steve Anderson said Tombstone, Arizona had one of the first fire hydrant systems, and the water tower was so high on the hill. First time they used it, knocked the building down because of the pressure. Yeah.
No doubt.
Especially a wooden frame structure. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Because if you've ever been to a ghost town and you've seen how they were built, now the wood was good wood, but they used 1-by material to side it with, and that's usually all they had on it. So yeah, you hit that from the right side, and it's going to blow it off of there. Travel to Spain. That's right. He was going overseas.
Over to Europe. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Well, safe travels, Bill.
Yeah.
And we want pictures when you get back.
Hey, good morning, Jack.
All righty. So, what's everybody else been doing?
Yeah.
If you want, I can go on about
project, because he
Okay,
kind of
Dennis,
chimed in
go.
at the very end of last week's episode and teased us with a working small steam engine. I want to know more about it.
Yeah.
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 We'll scare everybody and make him big.
Oh my God.
So, for those who don't know, Hornby. I was reading up on this the other day. It was either 2002 or 2004. It was roughly around that era. They decided to manufacture live steam. And from what I remember, the story goes, a guy did it for himself. I they approached him and gone, "Hey, can we use your designs, to mass produce?" So I don't know how many people know much about English locomotives, but the locomotives they produced was the A3 and the A4. Screw you, Roy. So I've got an A3 here. That's what they look like. That's an A3 00 Pacific.
Is that live steam?
Yeah, that's a live steam. That's my one. So that's what they look like when you buy them out of the box. This is more or less what they look like inside.
How do you get a fire?
It's an electric kettle on wheels.
Oh, okay.
So
Right.
essentially, like a steam generator, like you would get for a smoke generator. The same kind of concept. You got a heating element in there that gets so hot that it boils the water and produces the steam.
Yeah, but you get the same results with a kettle. So, this is basically a modern kettle. That's the tender, and as you can see, the wires behind there. If I can get it on the camera,
Yeah.
that's the heating elements in there.
Does it last? Does the water last very long?
I'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
There is a thermostat underneath the boiler, so when it does run dry, the thermostat cuts off the power. You got your steam hose, which supplies the steam to the loco. This is your safety valve. They run at about 35, 40 pounds from what I've been told. Now, up here, there's normally another heating element which sits in here. So it superheats the steam. You got your valve, and then you got your steam chest and your pistons. On the other side, you do have a whistle.
Cool.
Yeah.
How's that sound? Does it sound pretty cool?
Yeah, it actually sounds like the real thing, to an extent. Now, with these locos, like this one's missing a few parts because I was using it for parts. It does have an electric motor which sits about here, which drives a few gears, which drives the brass gear. That brass gear has a rod which actually controls the valve. Right, so that's how you open and close the valve to control the speed.
So you do have speed control. Cool.
Yes. Yeah,
How
you
do
have
you
speed
control
control
that?
and directional control.
How do you control this thing?
So you get a so when Hornby supplied this, they did sell sets with the controller. To give you an idea, hang on, let me go get mine.
So I'm guessing you can't get this stuff no more, really. Sort of.
You can't buy it new, but you can buy it secondhand.
Right.
So this is my control, or half of it. That can give you a good idea how big it is. And you get two of these. You get this, which is the power supply, and the other half is the throttle.
Okay.
It runs on 17 volts output at 7.5 amps. And you need that amperage to obviously power the heating elements.
That thing must be pretty cool to run.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so explain that again. So do you get power to the rails, and the power from the rails go to the heating element?
Yes.
Is that what is okay? So it's not dead rail.
No, it's not dead rail. Or it can be dead rail to an extent. If you've got enough steam pressure, you can turn the whole system off and it can just run around until it runs out of steam pressure, and then you just turn it back on to heat up the water.
What if
That, or if you really wanted to, some people have put a battery with a servo control just to control the motor, and they just use it to open and close the throttle, and the battery heats up the heating elements.
Have you ever had this thing running? Or any of them?
Yeah, I had it running last week. You weren't here.
Oh.
It'll take me too long to set up because it takes about 10, 15 minutes to boil anyway.
I'll have to watch the
Um,
replay.
Yeah. Now, with that, is anyone familiar with tappet valves on steam locomotives?
No.
Okay, so I know there's a couple of American locomotives that have tappet valves, but the English use it a lot as well. Basically, a tappet valve is you've got a rotary shaft that runs off the drive wheels that opens and closes valves like an overhead
Cam.
combustion engine. Yeah, with a cam. So the way these work, it's very similar in the fact that if you see there in the middle, you got a rotating shaft. That rotating shaft controls a valve in here, which directs the steam to the cylinders. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And if I rotate this enough, see that little bar there?
Mm-hmm.
That bar is what determines if it's in forward direction or reverse. So if I get that the right angle, if I turn it the other way, see how the rest of the gear assembly stays still, but that shaft turns?
Yeah.
So what would happen is the electric motor drives a brass gear that sits in there. The brass gear has a little tooth that makes contact with the that brass gear in there, which will turn the shaft, but this black plastic shaft or plastic gear would stay in place. And effectively what it was doing was basically either moving it to the reverse or to the forward.
So, so how long does it run on one tank of water?
Well, before the show started, I did convert how much water is into. You guys use fluid ounces, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Typically.
So once you learn how to drive this thing, because it is a live steam locomotive, it does have a mind of its own. But once you work out the knicks knacks, and Steve would probably understand this, you know, like with how much steam pressure, how much fire, or how much heat versus how much the throttle is open or closed, etc., etc. So far on 3.3 fluid ounces, I can get it running for about half an hour.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Wow.
So
And it is 3.3 ounces the max capacity of water you can put in it.
yeah, if you want to go to metric, it's 100 milliliters.
Maybe you could put another water tender in there, but half an hour is pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, half an hour is pretty good.
Then you stop at the
Especially-
water tower.
No, you got to turn it off and put the water in because otherwise you just get a whole bunch of boiling water in your face.
Yeah. Yeah. You
So-
definitely want to turn it off or let it cool a little bit.
So-
Now, can you fill it? Can you fill the tank straight from the top of the tender?
Yeah, so there's the filling, and this is a secondary safety valve. So if the original safety valve fails, that's the next one to go.
So
How
that-
difficult would it be to have another tender on a siding ready to go? Could you easily just swap tenders out instead of refilling one? No.
Nope. No, because this is a part, but they're permanently bolted together.
Okay.
Yeah.
No quick
Right.
coupling there.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, apart from that, the silly thing is I've only had this one maybe now 3 weeks. And because in my head, I go, okay, it's a model train. I've got to grab it with my bare hands and I burn myself.
Bernard wants to know what gauge track it runs on.
HO,
So
right?
double O is the English version of HO. So double O is 1 to 76, HO is 1 to 87. So they both run on 16.5 mil gauge track, which is HO track. So for those who aren't too familiar with double O, it's just English HO, but it's oversized because of what's happened many years ago.
So
Back when-
then, are the proportions of this locomotive fairly accurate to scale, or are some of them really out of whack because of
it's
the mechanics of it?
If anything, the proportions are probably a little bit more accurate compared to HO. Just trying to hang on. Just trying to think.
Hey Shannon, is that your Flying Scotsman on eBay?
Maybe I do have one on eBay.
Okay, I was just looking around.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? So from like to give you the idea of the size difference between HO and OO. HO, I think it's 1 foot to 4 millimeters, which is what's that in inches? A 1 foot to 0.15 of an inch, whereas OO, it's 1 foot to 0.13 of an inch.
But so then, as compared to the prototype, because like some manufacturers, like I'll just say Division Point, which you're probably familiar with, which is HO American, they make sure that all the proportions of their locomotives are accurate to the prototype. So if you get a K28 from Division Point, all the length, width, size of the locomotive is proportional, where say you get a precision scale or a West Side models, there's going to be inaccuracies as appropriate to the prototype. Is this locomotive that you have there, is it fairly prototypical to the prototype in size, regardless of the scale? Is it prototypically accurate to its own dimensions of the prototype?
I would say it is very, very close. It'd probably be a little bit more accurate than HO because it is slightly bigger. You know?
So there's more wiggle room.
Yeah. Because as I said, like if you compare it, if you were to get if you were to measure 1 foot, right, in HO scale, about I'd say 3/4 of that. No, sorry. Let me start again. So if you were to measure 1 foot in HO scale, it would measure roughly 3/4 of OO. Because OO, as I said,
it's just a little bit bigger.
Yeah, but that all came down to one of the things that for that is many years ago when model trains first came out, all electric motors were the same size. You couldn't get like really fine small motors because if you were to compare an actual prototype English loco against an American loco, so same wheel arrangement, it'd be like comparing an F-150 to an F-350. Like the size difference, you can tell.
When you say F-150, you're talking about the pickup truck?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you look at an F-150 pickup truck, it is a big truck, but, it's smallish, it's usable, family friendly. And then you get an F-350 and you look and you go, Jesus Christ, this thing's a monster.
Yeah. Yeah, a little beefier.
Yeah, much. Yeah. Like to give you an idea, actually, it'd probably like try and compare an American Pacific to a 484. That'd probably be like a good idea of the size difference between the English and the American stuff. If you look at same wheel arrangements.
Pretty cool though.
Yeah, Path Valley said, yeah, and he's right. I saw part of this. Toyman had a pretty good series on scale and gauge for models. And if you want to know any more about why they came to be and how they ended up being made into models, they did a pretty good job, I think, of explaining that. And it's several different videos too. It's not just one video.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of them, but I haven't. I wanted to watch them all kind of back to back to back, but I haven't gotten around to it yet.
Yeah, he may have it on a playlist. I haven't seen. I've only seen about 3 or 4 of them, but I know he had several in there. But he did a really good job with it. He evidently researches pretty well before he does something like that. But yeah, they did a good series on it.
Yeah, I did remember seeing that video, but I haven't watched it. Like I saw the what's it called, the image you see on YouTube when you're like, oh yeah, there's another video.
Yeah,
Thumbnail.
yeah, they do pretty good videos like that. You know, most of his stuff is they're going on a trip and they're just taking you along with them. You know. But when he does do something like that for information purposes, they do a really good job of explaining it and letting you know how it is or how it came to be.
Yeah. Yeah. So, is there any other questions anyone wants to know about the live steam? Actually, in saying that, since I've had this, I've been doing a lot of research. The amount of people in England who have modified these things to make other locos is astounding. There was one guy, probably about your age, Claude. He's a retired machinist, I think, and he's put roller bearings in these.
Oh, shit.
He did.
He does what?
Now?
He put roller bearings in these on the axles.
Wow. He wanted to go fast, didn't he?
Oh, trust me, these on when I first started running this, what was it? It was so radius 3 is I think it's I want to say it's about 17 and 7/8 of an inch radius. And at full throttle, as soon as it hits the curve, it literally flies off and then just on its side, all the water hits all the hot spots, so it's spilling out steam and it's just going. And I'm just like, crap, I've got to pick this thing up. Oh, crap, I've got to find the gloves.
Yeah, because once it's off the track, you can't control it then.
No.
It's kind of like
So you can
kicking the whistle off the top of the steam dome.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but the difference is, like the side rods, they're probably about as fragile as HO side rods. So if it falls on its side against something that catches on the side rod, those side rods are going to get mangled real quick.
Yeah. Yeah, that's too complicated for me.
Yeah,
I'll stick with mine.
it sounds cool, looks cool, but when you have problems,
No, I only got some carriages the other day for it, and with 5 carriages, once I got it at full throttle, it actually weighs it down enough that the steam's actually doing work, so it's not actually free spinning, and at full speed it actually just runs really nice.
Interesting.
it'd be cool to put that on a big layout to let it really run.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, as I said, you do have to use this system that they supply with it if you do buy a full set.
Yeah.
Because it's weird how it works. So there's a circuit board inside the cab, and from what I can understand is there's a 17-volt voltage on the track, which heats up the elements. But when you ask the controller to tell the loco to throttle up, throttle down, or forward and reverse, depending on how you're actuating the throttle, it actually drops the voltage to about 7 or 8 volts, which activates a separate circuit in the loco, which for a split second cuts out the heating elements, but powers the motor either in the clockwise or anti-clockwise direction to obviously adjust the throttle depending which way you want to go.
Could you convert this thing to run in the U.S.?
You'd be
We have
surprised
bought
how
it
many
in the
people
US.
buy it in the US
How would you
Cause-
run it in the U.S.?
with the same controller.
I mean, like, it's 240 volts?
Well, this one's 240 volts.
It'd just be a matter of the power supply, right? The
Yeah,
conversion.
because that's the power supply.
As long as you got the correct volts into the power box, just be a matter of your wall wart,
Yeah,
right?
but they did sell these in America, and I actually became good friends with a guy in England who sells parts for these and actually dismantles ones that are beyond repair for parts, so to speak. And he says he sells a lot to America at the moment.
I wonder why there's not more of them on eBay. Like, I only see yours on eBay. That's it. Maybe I'm not looking right.
Well, a lot of people in England don't like sending stuff overseas. Don't ask me
Okay.
why.
Yeah.
But I know this guy that I deal with. He sells a lot of stuff overseas. He sells stuff, a lot of stuff to America. One of the last sets he sold, which I believe he rebuilt. He sold a full set for a little under 1,700 US to the States.
That's with track and all.
Yeah, track, loco.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you're not seeing any popping up because do you have on your settings, do you have defaults area or worldwide?
I don't know. I didn't check. But
Yeah.
I
But
can check.
they are available. There's not a large range around. There's only 5 locos you can choose from.
Okay.
And out of the 5, 4 of them are the same body shape, just a different color and a different name.
Oh, okay. So they're not different styles.
Yeah.
And they're cool nonetheless.
I'll stick with mine.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course. Yeah, yours is ultimate cool. At least you can ride yours.
Hey, think of it this way, Steve. I started with N scale. I now got this.
Yep.
So now I've got to step it up to the next one, which was probably 3-inch gauge.
No, there's 3/4 scale.
Oh, it might be 3.5-inch gauge, yeah. So 3.5,
and
then
you
5
got
inch,
1 inch.
then 7.5.
Yeah, see, you work your way up, dude. Yeah. Now,
but not with the fourth coming.
Yeah.
no,
So,
you'll never be able to get one, Shannon.
Hey, I remember when these were advertised when I was younger, and that was about. I was in school when they're advertising like, I wish I had the money to buy one. Now I've got one. So if I keep going at the rate I'm going, I'll probably end up like you. I'll be like, "Oh, hi, my name's Shannon. Here's my 7.5-inch gauge."
Well, they've got G-scale live stream too. You can get G-scale.
do you guys have any live stream clubs over there, Shannon?
Locally, about half an hour to 45 minutes south, there's one which is run by the steel mill, and it's for steel mill members, which ironically would be really good for people because if you work at a steel mill, imagine all the tools you have to your disposal.
Yeah.
What are you doing, Fred? Oh, nothing, boss. Just doing something for the club next door.
Time out. We got Tim Parks in chat, and he's never been in chat before because he's always sleeping. What, dude? You popped in. How's it going?
Is he one of your live stream buddies?
Oh yeah, Tim Parks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Big.
Oh, hang on. Is this Fireman Tim?
This is fire. Well, no, now this is engineer Tim. He's a qualified steam engineer over on the coast.
No, to me, he's still fireman Tim, because ever since you told me that story where he nearly set you on fire.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, Tim. Welcome.
That was the famous midnight run to the top of the mountain, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, with the bear. Well, that was the same trip, but no. Yeah, the fire was during the day. The bear was.
Okay.
Yeah, the bear wasn't there because, as you said, Tim was like, "Oh, just pour it in. Don't worry about the phone. Just pour it in."
Yep. Yeah, we ran out of gas twice that day.
Yeah, and the second time what did he say? He heard the bear cubs, and he's just like, "Steve, just drop it. Go."
Oh yeah, you don't mess with the bears.
Oh, okay.
That's why he's up. He's getting ready to go steam up the engine.
Yeah. Tim's building a tank car too, out of an old propane tank. So he's been very busy.
Almost did it twice. Well, Steve's kind of like wet wood, it's hard to get the catch the first time.
Yeah. For anybody, if you guys want to go back and watch, what was it, a year and a half ago or something? We had Tim up at Train Mountain, and we did a live. There.
Yeah, that's right. That's when we heard the story.
Yeah.
That was
fireman Tim.
Yeah.
Well, good. Everything runs good.
Well, Dennis, what you got anything? We got about 15 minutes left, 14.
Yeah, I can show you a little bit. I wouldn't say that I've done a significant amount of work, but I can kind of show you where I'm going for sure. Let's see. Where's my settings?
Steve wouldn't stop talking when I heard the bears. He kept saying it was a dog.
Oh yeah. Well, now up to this was before the fires, so this was up on top of the mountain at Spring, which is a great place to stop for the steamers to fill up with water. It was about 10 o'clock at night. We're up there by ourselves. Beautiful summer night. I shut my engine off, and we're just enjoying the peace and quiet. And then we hear a little down, and I'm thinking it's a dog. My ears are ringing because my engine's so loud. I'm thinking it's a dog. Tim goes, "That's not a dog. That's not a dog." And then we hear rustling up on the other side, which turns out to be a bear cub. And we ended up in the middle between a mama and her baby on both sides of the track.
Not a good place to be.
So we're like, "Oh crap, we got to get out of here. We buy the engine, make as much money." And we flew down the mountain, and the top of the hydraulic tank had popped off. So I was blowing hydraulic fluid all over my engine. When we got stopped at the bottom, the locomotive was smoking. I was afraid it was going to catch fire and blow up again. Anyway, go ahead, Dennis. Enough of this talk.
So we've now established that every time you hang out with Tim, either you or something you own almost catches fire.
That's true. That's true.
So what I've done to this point is I've laid in this piece of 1/4-inch masonite, which is going to be the foundation for everything. And I've decided I'm pretty sure that I'm going to remove, because there's a little bit of cork, from here to where the wood is on the backside that you can't see. There might be a foot of cork right in there. And I want to remove all of that so that piece of masonite sits flush with it, because I don't like that line that I've got there. And I'm still fleshing out exactly how I'm going to accomplish what I'm going to accomplish. I've got an idea where I'm going. If you haven't watched the last video, even if you don't watch it, you might go in and take a look at the comment that Boomer left. I think I may actually go ahead and build a 2-inch to 1-foot maquette just of this area, so I can figure out how I want this to look in 3D. I'm not 100% sure, but I think I'm going to try that. I think that might be fun. And that way I get everything right before I begin.
Well, that scene's gonna look awesome. I mean, the whole railroad's gonna look awesome, but that your eye for detail on stuff like this is really good.
Yeah, the composition is how I refer to it. The composition of it.
Yeah, and I think what I commented on in your video was I think the steeper you can make this street here, the better it's going to look on the model. Just because you're compressed, I think it'll give that visual reference will be much better.
Right.
What you're trying to show there.
And
you put more time and effort into your mock-ups than a lot of people put in their in the railroad when they're done.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that, but I do think that this just helps. It really helps see what you want and how it's all going to work. And so, this piece of plywood here, my plan is to attach this to that, and then all of that can be removed as one unit. Then this, which is on top of that, can also be removed as one unit. And then all of the different areas on, where Gregory Street and Sleestack Street align with each other there. Each of those, like these 3 buildings, those 4 buildings, those 2, and then the coal dealership back there, they will also be on their own footprint that can be removed.
I was just, your OCD. Yeah.
It's CDO. It should be alphabetized.
Oh,
Yeah, compulsive, disorder, obsessive. Yeah. But that's really all I've done. So I'm going to be working on this today. I think just as soon as the program's over here, I'm going to get busy on this because I have a pretty good idea of what my next step is. But I'm pretty sure that before I do any major movements with the terrain itself, I may go ahead and get some clay or something and see if I can't maybe do another mock-up of this just to kind of see what it looks like.
Gail, just remember, you're the one that said yes when he proposed to you.
I did get some track in. I don't know if I shared that or not, but I did go ahead and get Pico track so I can kind of finish this up a little bit if I want to. And then I can also, which I don't think I'm going to get in a hurry, but finishing all of this into there, I've got enough track I can get to my next location if I want to go back to doing track work.
Well, you can always hand lay it if you can't get the flex track.
Now I'm not gonna. I've done a little bit of the hand laying. I didn't like it. This rail in the pit is hand railed. I didn't like it. But I probably didn't have the right kind of spikes anyway. But
yeah. Well, and I ended up using medium spikes and probably should have been using the micro spikes. And I think that made me part of my problem on some of the trouble I had on mine was because my wheels were actually hitting the spike heads.
Really? Did you have code 55?
Do what?
Code 55 or code 70?
Code 70.
Really?
Yeah. And some of the spikes, because not all of them were microengineering spikes. I had probably 2 or 3 different brands of spikes because I was buying them off of eBay pretty cheap, and you get a whole different passel of stuff to do it with. And I had that problem in a few places, but I also figured it out pretty quick. So I didn't. I could modify how I was putting them in. I just stuck them in at a better angle. You know, originally I was going almost straight down. Well, then I started going on more of an angle, and I was able to keep them from doing that.
And if anybody else also watched my last video where I discussed the short, I think we have confirmed what caused the short. As long as he keeps his OCD in the workshop and out of my house, we could. I'm going to remember that.
I don't know if I've ever said this before, but I love Gail.
And she's got it right. It is her house. It's not his house. It's her house.
I know. Yep. I live in the camper an hour and a half away, 2 hours now. So I'm just here on the weekends, and hopefully I can get a free meal occasionally.
So did you find out what happened, what your short was?
Yes. So at least I'm 99.9% sure. And I know if you remember way back when I was working on my staging yard, I had a short that I never found. Mm-hmm. I retraced all of my wiring, pulled my hair out for about 4 days, and then the short just disappeared. And then it never reappeared again. I was never able to explain that. And then now I've had two more instances of a short that could not be explained whatsoever. So I'm using metal track nails. I've drilled holes through my copper PCB ties, and what's going on is that I'm getting connectivity between the top of the nail on top of the PCB tie and the bottom copper on the bottom of the PCB tie. so the metal track nail, I think it's been a little dependent upon the weather, the little bit of expansion and contraction, so 99% of all of them I've not had any issues with. So it was a long short, right? So what I need to do moving forward, without a doubt, is because someone left a comment that said that they one time experienced a short after they ballasted, like he suspected that the minerals in the water and how the ballast worked created some kind of connectivity because of the ballast in the water. And he started gapping both sides, the top side and the bottom side of his PCB. That way, there's no chance that either the top or the bottom could make that connection. Because I wouldn't have had that problem at all if I was gapped on the bottom of the PC tie as well as the top. So now I'm considering pulling up every one of my turnouts and gapping the bottom of them just to be 100% sure a year from now, after I ballasted, I don't have a short and I have no idea where the hell it is.
Did you do that, Claude? Did you gap your things?
No, and I've not had that problem. But then I want using track nails like Dennis is.
Right.
So he's using track nails to hold his turnouts down. I used just regular rail spikes. So the rail spikes even the medium ones aren't near as long as what he's using. He's using some that go all the way down to the plywood. But now, I do have some track spikes that are in the plywood, but I've still not run into that problem. But I'm also not going into the ties. I'm spiking the rail, not the ties.
Why don't you spike the rail?
Why don't I spike the rail?
Yeah, instead of tearing them all up and changing.
Well, because when you
I don't know. I don't.
When you build the turnout, you have to use solder. I don't think you could build a solid turnout without soldering the rail to the PC tie, and then that PC tie is what creates all of the electric current to the frog and everything else.
Right.
So, and here's the deal. I have never planned on leaving the metal track nails in the turnouts. My plan has always been, as soon as I get everything ballasted, to pull those nails out. And I still haven't decided yet. I might figure out that there's really no reason to pull everything up and gap the bottom of the
Sounds
piece.
like a lot of work, man.
All he needs is bread and peanut butter.
No refrigerator or microwave.
That's what my
Roy was
wife
trying to get
me,
you a
gentlemen.
mattress and refrigerator and microwave out there, but
That's the peak of my dinner when I come home from a long weekend of hard work in the prison is peanut butter and bread.
Sound like an inmate.
oh yeah.
They feed inmates better.
I eat almost as good as the inmates. Almost.
Well, unfortunately, that's our hour, guys.
All right, good show.
Thank you again, Gail. You make me laugh.
Yeah, she only shows
guys,
that
Jerry,
long enough
Steve,
to make fun of
Shannon,
me.
Shannon, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, it's a good time.
And Dennis, thank you too.
Yeah.
Have a good week, everybody.
And remember that kit's yours if you want it. So.
Well, I'll be there the 20th.
Okay.
I'll be up the 20th.
Okay. All righty. Well, thanks everybody in chat, and have a good rest of the weekend and a good week. And we'll see you next Friday.
Later, guys.
Bye.
Later. See ya.
See you later.